They are building a lunar capsule out of the state capitol.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go!
So right down the street from the flea market is an antique mall, and that happens a lot because a successful flea market brings people who like old stuff, and an antique mall can share some of that traffic. Now, it is a different customer in some ways, and it's a different price point in some ways, maybe, but you never know, so we're going to find out. This is the Sangamon Antique Mall, named after the street that it's on. I'm not from here, so I could be massacring that pronunciation. It looks empty, but then you turn and no, there's a whole bunch of cars. It's just they saved the spot in front of the door for loading, so in we go.
The price on old radios has really gone up. This one's priced at $125, but it works. That's important. It's a nice wooden case. It's very Art Deco from about 1940. It used to be these would sell for $50 or $65, but those days seem to be over. So this place has a lot of showcases. Some nicer merchandise is 20% off, which makes the Stengel Wren only $10, so it looks like the prices are pretty reasonable. We might find some things in here. I really like the signed check glass perfume, and that is $44 after the discount. I am very tempted by that. Those used to be a fortune. They're not as much now, but they are still really beautiful and people love them. And let's see down here, we've got that custard glass fairy lamp. That's going to be $36 after the discount. That is not a bad price at all. That's in the Burmese, which does glow, of course, under a black light. Consolidated glass lovebird vase. That's probably by Phoenix, actually, because I noticed the solid color backgrounds are usually Phoenix, which was produced after Consolidated using the same molds. Those two companies had a big fight over it. Consolidated went bankrupt in the Depression. Phoenix got some of the molds, then Consolidated reformed and wanted them back. So it gets a little nebulous as to who made what. The Weller candlesticks in the back with the floral pattern are very pretty. They're from about 1920, and they are $45 for the pair, and 20% off again. That might be a buy right there. I know some folks out there are getting interested in early American press glass. This is the Colorado pattern. $10, pretty reasonable price. This is Pilgrim glass. I recognize it by the very long handle, and it's $7. Also a good price. I think I'm going to do some shopping here. A bunch of these liquor jugs from the 1970s in the $4 to $7 range. You know, things are not badly priced here. I think I'm happy I came. Maybe we'll find something amazing and be really happy. I like these screen prints with the daffodils in the original bale, and that's $30, but there's only 6. Probably they didn't go in this bale originally, and so they just put what they had in there. A lot of the glasses you see in these bales are just whatever somebody could find to put in them, and the originals are long gone. Here's a pattern of Pfalzgraf you don't see very often. This is the America pattern, which was done for the American Folk Art Museum in 1983. And you just don't run into it a lot. It's done like spongeware. They actually did a lot of different pieces like spongeware from the early days. And you see it's even got the Museum of Folk Art stamp on the bottom. They made this for about 6 years. They reintroduced it briefly in the 2000s. It's been out of production for about the last 15 years. There's the platter. Nice to see a lot of pieces in one place because you just don't really run into it much. Well, we're getting close enough to Chicago that we're going to see books and things related to Chicago. At its peak, published in 1923, Chicago's Highways Old and New. This is about dignitaries, Volume 2 from 1911, the Book of Chicagoans, people who were famous at the time. I always like these books about lost Chicago, Seattle then and now, where they show what was there and what is there now. It's an interesting contrast to see what we've gained and what we've lost over the years. Well, these folks are getting ready to retire, and so they've got half off. This Weller piece at $145, the Luelsa pattern, it's well marked. The half off price is about right for retail, so for a collector that's great. For me, I will leave it behind. This green vase interests me because of the drip glaze. It's very heavy. This is going to be made by one of the crockery companies in the Midwest. Not sure which one. There were a lot of little ones. I think Whitehall, Illinois alone had 10. It just weighs a ton. It's almost like concrete. And then cigarette lighters are 15 each, but they are not on sale, I believe. No, it says all half off. Okay. Well, then it's worth taking a look at some of these, because some of these are good advertising pieces, depending who made them. A lot of these are going to be cheap Japanese ones from the era, because why would you pay Zippo to do it if you could get it for less? Nowadays, people pay for Zippo because people realize their quality is better. The world's leader in parking meters. Okay, I think they got me on that one. That is just interesting because parking meters are now disappearing and being collected. So that makes it collectible in two ways. I think I'll take that. This one's from an elevator company. And that's Barlow, who also made the knives. That might be interesting as well. And then 1 hour Martinizing. You used to see that on the dry cleaners all over the place. In the back there we have the US Baby Tank. That is really cool. I've never seen that before. It's $125, but I imagine it's rather scarce. It says made in USA, and it's the old style tank from the First World War. The child's churn is a reproduction that you see there. And they say so on the tag. They're not trying to fool you. You can tell that it's not really very functional or well cast, but there are little churns that are very valuable. This is one of the first motion lamps that was ever made. I wish we could light it up and see it spin. Can't shake you out of my mind. These little rubber pieces are hula girls, and there is something that moves around that makes them shake and shimmy when you move the handle. They're a collectible thing. They have it priced with a discount because this one's 15% off at about $35. These Panasonic bracelet radios from the early 70s are definitely selling. This one's around $35. If it's in better shape, that would be almost buyable because I think they sell around $55, $65 if I'm not mistaken now. And then this is an old school Merry Christmas tree topper from the late 40s, early 50s. That is really neat. More than I can spend at $85 minus the 15%, but if I was a serious Christmas collector, I'd probably need that. And for you lucite collectors, there's a rattlesnake captured in lucite. Can't say I've seen that before. These people like snakes because we've also got an old taxidermic cobra. Francoma's famous boot became a bank later in their production, and this is a later blue color. There's the bank slot on the top. The pink clay tells us this is after 1983, when they reformulated the clay after the second fire, and it's got the FP mark underneath. I found out recently from a viewer that Francoma Pottery, some of the molds were sold to a new producer, and they are making very, very small batch production of the political mugs and perhaps some other items, so that'll be something to watch for in the market. Here's some spaghetti poodles. And how much are these? This one's Napco. They may have them priced together, $35 for the pair, but I'm not sure they go together. This one's Italian. I didn't think they were a match. This one's sort of hippie looking. He needs a haircut, just like me. Even though this is a quartz clock, this is worth looking into because it tells time around the world. These were very popular in the 1970s. This is Howard Miller. It's a good maker. While I'm not a personal fan of the pickled oak case, I think the dial and face are very interesting looking, and it's $34, so I'm going to look that up because I think that might be a bargain. I'm used to thinking of this company mainly just for crockery, but this is Monmouth. And it's a console set minus one candle holder, unfortunately. It looks a lot like Stengel patterns and the earlier Fulper patterns, but it says right there, Monmouth Pottery, Monmouth, Illinois. It's an attractive variegated glaze, and with that label, I would suspect these were made in the 30s and 40s. A lot of companies that had made utility ware went to decorative items in that time to try to stretch their line and stay in business, and I think it worked for Monmouth. They were around a while after that. It's interesting to me that this is primarily a showcase mall. It's great for security. It makes it a little more, you have to ask, and some people are shy about that, but honestly, I think it's great because it means that you can put better quality merchandise in and not have to worry. So as a dealer, it gives you options. This coffee grinder, the crystal with the crystal clear dispenser, so you could see how much coffee was left. This is going to date to sometime around 1915 or 20. It's priced at $160. That may be a little bit of an elevation because it's missing the original jar. This is just a canning jar that they put in to catch the coffee after it grinds. I like these little childhood things. The one in the middle is Butternut Bread asking you to make sure you hear the Cisco Kid on radio. So that's going to be about 1950 before a lot of people had televisions. Clicker on the right is $3. Actually, all of this is 20% off of what's marked. And then on the left, that is Out of Post cereal, the little badge. This is a pretty decent price at $15 because it's Westmoreland's great pattern, and if it was plain, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it has the Charlton Company's decoration. Charlton would buy these from Westmoreland and then hand paint bows and garlands and things. They did a lot of this sort of decorating of Westmoreland pieces in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s primarily, I believe. And so because of that decoration, it's probably worth a fair bit more, although maybe not enough more for me to buy it. They also have a ton of table lighters, and most of them are priced about right. The Zippo with the Swarovski crystals and the dollar sign is $40. That's your most expensive, but they have some of these as low as $10. And then one to the left that I want to show, which I also think I want to buy if it works, is this Ronson with this very Art Deco / 50s modern style, and it's only $8. I think they looked at it and thought it was plain. I look at it and think that's what modernists want. I know I can sell that for $20 or $25. These 1930s era Child's Plays have really fallen in value, and they're so cute. I'm surprised people are not picking them up and collecting them, but I think they will, because this one here with I Go Here says the fork and I Go Here says the spoon. These were to help train kids how to eat properly at the table. $6. Very inexpensive. I have to say I'm tempted just on cute appeal. This space is half off, and I don't know how much the Jupiter Gyro set is. It's by Tony. Okay, it was $75, but it's a spinning space toy. I don't know if it's worth $75 regularly. If it is, I might be tempted to get it because it's something unusual. And this enameled copper fish it says as is, so it's going to depend. If it's got chips, oh, I see a chip at the bottom. That's too bad because it's only $10. I'm almost, even though I usually don't like anything with damage, it's minor enough, I might get it anyway. The bargain in this case, because most of this stuff is old school prices, I don't think anyone ever got $265 for the Roseville Belmas Small Jardiniere, for example. And yet next to it, this Hager is only $17, and it's a great color in a very deco style, although that might be a 1980s line, I'm not sure. But Hager is gone now, so I don't think it matters regardless. This dealer is doing half off. They have a lot of these bisque figures that were done by Lefton and Lipper and Mann and other Japanese importers in the 1970s. I just don't see a lot of call for these, though, because they made so very many of them. And most of them don't have a mark or a signature of a company that we really consider important now. I see some Precious Moments in there too. So even though the half-off deal sounds great, I just don't see the kinds of things that I have a customer to buy. Here's a whole box of later Joseph originals. They have the numbers, which are very sweet if you're giving them to a girl who is coming of that age, but they're less collectible now than the ones that don't have the numbers, and these have the brown eyes, so they're later in time. Having said that, the prices on these are really good. There's a whole lot of $5 and $6 and $7 in here.
So while I'm thinking of it, please comment in the space below here and also hit the thumbs up button to like this video. If you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button below. Also hit the bell below to be notified of new videos coming every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And thank you so much for following along. Let's go back to this video. We are in the land of Lincoln, so I'm sure that we will see more Lincoln stuff. This little copper patinaed piece is $19 from the 1950s. There are a lot of presidential collectors in the Springfield area because of Lincoln.
And of course, a lot of people who are touring Springfield because of Lincoln. When you get close to downtown, the few remaining homes have been turned into nice little wine bars and places like this. And then there's this home. This was Virgil Hickok's home, and Virgil Hickok was an opponent of Lincoln. He even gave Lincoln's rival Stephen Douglas a fancy train car to run around and campaign throughout the state of Illinois in hopes that he would beat Lincoln in the Senate race, which he did. However, Lincoln became a very well-known national figure as the result of the Stephen Douglas debates and became the nominee and president under the Republican Party. Here you see Springfield's later Capitol building.
Well, they're getting ready for 4th of July festivities, even though it's the 3rd. And in honor of it, they are building a lunar capsule out of the state capitol, the old state capitol dome. So that's kind of exciting and new. Obviously, they're just working on it. I haven't seen the Longfellow bookends before. I always liked Evangeline, but his nose is a little bruised looking. Turns out there's a big back room and a side room as well. I figured there was more to this place than met the eye, and it looks like it's quite large. And it looks like it's kind of this and that. There's newer stuff, there's older stuff. We'll see if there's any stuff for us. A nice fur, since it's 85 degrees outside. I imagine this won't cost a lot. It's $65. The milk glass plate with the chief is likely to be another Westmoreland piece from about 1900 or 1910. The gold's worn off of his nose, which is a little odd looking though. We can tell it's older because look at the fiery nature of the edge of the opalescence. So you know that's not a 1960s era piece, it's a 1910s era piece. I really like scales. Now these old package scales can be pretty useful for people who are selling online. This is an old Pitney Bowes from probably the 70s. What's great about these is that they have the original Red Ryder boxes. Now these are 1960s, 70s, and later. The one on the right is 90s, but new in the box makes a big difference. And so that's why you see prices around $100 to $140 on these as opposed to the typical $25 you might see for a used one sitting outside the box. It's Francona again. This was one of the very last things that they made. And what they did was they actually let the brown show through, and they did these for hunters and sportsmen and fishermen. We sold this line when it was new at the Factory Outlet Center in Centralia, Washington, and this stuff was expensive. $32 for the 15 pieces is actually pretty good. I have so much dinnerware, but I feel like this would sell in the places I sell in Kentucky. If there were more dinner plates, I would definitely be getting it, but with only 2, someone would have to patch together a set. Well, up the hill we go into the final section of what has turned out to be a very large antique mall. And we will see if we find some nice things up here. I have a feeling this might be better stuff than what we saw in the other section, which was sort of the far back. Pool table lights do sell well. They usually are in the 150 to 200 range. This one's 175. Lots of fun wall stuff here. The Schaefer beer. The 50s wall dancers are $40. This is a color that you do not see in Blenko very much. It's a 70s era piece in this medium blue color. Priced at $25, it's not a bad price. If it was just a little larger size, I would get it.
Both this guy and the home ceramicist who made him had a bad hangover the next day. I'm just guessing.
It makes me happy to see other YouTubers catching on to John Perry. Some of these designs are no longer in production. I know that Yvonne Thrifty Rich has some direct connection to them and is going to try to find out for us what is available and what isn't anymore. This one is priced at $24, and it's a very large format for him, so I think that's a pretty reasonable price. The thing that's great about this saddle is that it is child-sized. It's $65, and that means it's something small enough that people could decorate with it. It looks to me like something from the 1960s, looking at the style. It's got at least one stirrup and cuff. If it has all of them, maybe hard to pass because I do a lot of Western, and this definitely has the look. And there is the other stirrup. Gosh, it has everything. The saddle horn's kind of worn, but the rest of it seems pretty good. I think that might end up going with me if I can find one more place in the car to put something that size. Cute little Lefton pixie with the wings, but the flowers have chips, so I'm going to leave her, but she's sweet. They've got the Empire Santa, the blow mold in the corner, but they want $275 because everyone has caught on to blow mold, it seems. Oh my goodness, there's a third floor. Well, here we go. Caution low beams. Oh, perfect, just my height. Well, I've banged my head on enough stuff doing estate sales and plowing through low basements before. This will be nothing new. Warm up here, so I'm sure this is more of an overflow space. Although there will be some interesting things right away. This is the dealer downstairs who's retiring. Here's their upstairs, and this is an interesting piece of Red Wing. It was $39 to be $19. If it didn't have the hairline crack in the edge there, I would take that, because the modernists do like their Red Wing. Now this head base looks like she's a real one from the era. She has her jewelry, none of her fingers are broken. But half of 65 is $32.50, and that's what they sell for now. So sometimes when a dealer is retiring and they've been a dealer a long time, some of the prices reflect old school pricing, and a big discount just brings it to retail. Now this guy's got a great face. He looks like some happy drinking guy from pre-Prohibition, and he is by Warwick Pottery, the Ioga line, and this was a beer pitcher done right before Prohibition, and this is United States. He's just got a great face. He'd be $34. It's not a bad price, and if you were a pre-Prohibition drink collector, he might have to go with you. The black Francoma candlesticks fool people sometimes into thinking they're newer than they are. But we look at the bottom, and this is the old Ada clay. It's got the paper label. It's marked Francoma. It's the tan clay. They were only $12 to begin with. And I'm sure people just thought, oh, the black glaze is new, but it's not. Not at all. They did the black glaze in late production, but it was around for a long time. I'm going to take those for $6. This framed textile just has a neat look to it. It looks like it is from India. When you see these concentric circles around little holes, sometimes they'd have mirrors in them. When I was a kid, we had a fabric horse made of this material on the outside that came from India. Some really wonderful things are made in India, and I have one viewer that I know of from there. Hello, Sam. And I hope that you're enjoying this. I sure would like to go there and see their art and artifacts up close. I've seen a couple of exhibits in museums, and they were fascinating.
Oh, my dad would have loved this lamp. He was always saying we were using too much electricity, and here's a meter to show you exactly how much electricity you're using with this lamp. Very clever reuse of this old gauge. Lots of American companies made this kind of ware around 1900. This particular piece is not marked Weller or Roseville or Owens or even McCoy Loyal art. This is by Peters and Reed, also in the Zanesville
Ohio area. They tended to do these very thick glazes that they would have to polish off the kiln. You can see the spider marks where they had the things that held the piece off the kiln, and then they had to scrape it because some of it overflowed. At half off, this is $47.50. That's a pretty good deal for this. And there does seem like there's more interest in arts and crafts forms. My only hesitation is that the form itself is kind of clunky and awkward to my mind as far as the design at the top goes.
Speaking of presidential collectibles, this image of Richard Nixon is done using a sgraffito etching technique into resin and then blacking it out so it looks almost like pen and ink. This was done by Siegfried Reinhardt. He escaped Germany, ended up in the U.S. Navy, and worked for the Stars and Stripes as an illustrator, and later became very famous as an artist, even though he had no formal training. This was one of his last works. He died rather young, so his stuff is not that easy to find, and what a great deal for $25. I'll take it.
This Russell Wright platter in the coral is only $10. It's the Steubenville line. I have to get that for $10. You don't really see the big chop plates without a lot of scratches usually, because they got used, so this one's in nice shape. Not everyone has caught up with the recent found popularity of Hager. Here we have the pink and blue in a pheasant form, and it is only $8, so that is flying home with me. Well, color blocking is back, and this early 70s suitcase really has the color blocking. It's very cute. I haven't seen this pattern before. It's $34, which is probably about what it's worth, but I just liked it a lot and thought I should show you. These pieced wood plaques that you see from about the 1970s onward can be rather interesting. I look for De Groot signatures. This one doesn't have a signature, but it's well made, and the colors definitely look like late 1970s. They have it priced at $60. This piece tempts me because I have a lot of customers looking for Russell Wright, and this is the carafe in the tan color. Some colors are worth more. This one's worth about $120, and with the discount it's priced at $76. If I could sell directly to the customers that I have for this, I would buy it and take a less than usual markup, but I'm be selling this through a mall. They're going to take a commission, so it doesn't really make sense. But it's a great price for a collector. Sometimes when you see things that have been in malls a long time, well, sometimes they've sat there long enough that the prices are now very reasonable for what they are. I need to look at this wee one, the little elf on the planter. That is Treasure Craft. I have not seen the wee one painted in brown glaze before. So I'm going to look and see if that was repainted or if it's original. If it's original, I'm buying it because that's an unusual color. They did some odd colors late in the production around 1954, right before they switched over to the brownware that made them famous.
After Lincoln's assassination, they sent him by rail back to Springfield and stopped at towns all through the United States where tens of thousands of people came out in an outpouring of grief. He laid in state here and then was buried here in Springfield. You've got to believe the people who came to this had to be thinking, the war is over, everyone's going home, we're moving into the future, but what future will this be? It had to be a very frightening time.
This was a bigger and better than antique store than I expected, and I spent a bunch of money. The prices were good for what they had. It was good quality. If the question is, was the flea market better or the antique store better? Well, I've got to say, I think I did about equally well at both. So it just goes to show you, you never know where you're going to find deals in the antique and reselling business. In the meantime, it's great to be with you. I'm George the Antique Nomad. See me at the social media posted here. And we'll be back here with more videos soon. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.